Welcome, everybody. I am Dr. David Rare and want to again welcome you and thank you to the kickoff webinar for the Virginia Academic Robotic Process Automation, RPA, Community of Practice, which is designed to educate, research, share best practices, collaborate, kind of learning from each other as we move forward on leveraging automation software across the Commonwealth for our private and public four-year institutions, generating even greater effectiveness, greater efficiencies, and student engagement. This is a private and public partnership, and I would like to thank our partners committed to improving the benefits of software automation, and especially for Virginia at Mason for providing initial seed funds and embracing our mission wholeheartedly. The Virginia Academic COP is the first of its kind in the country and parallels the successful model of the federal RPA Community of Practice, which has done so much at the federal level and so much for taxpayers across the country. Please go to rpa-va.us to find out more about the COP. If you go to the tab contact section, you'll see our amazing board of directors we have assembled, some of the best and the brightest in the country. Our topic today is how can software automation make a positive difference for colleges and enhance academic success? I will turn the webinar over to my friend Dornan, who has been and is instrumental in moving our RPA and our RPA initiative program at George Mason forward. So Dornan, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, David, and good afternoon, everybody. We're delighted to be here with you today, and thank you for participating in our, what is the first webinar of the Virginia Academic RPA Community of Practice. The purpose of today's webinar is to raise awareness and demonstrate to both public and private higher education stakeholders the practical positive results of utilizing software automation and RPA technologies to serve specific issues and how to access them. We are delighted to have invited and participating three wonderful experts who are coming from different side of the spectrum of what it means software automation ecosystem. So with us today, please allow me just to introduce you our three speakers. First is Paula Carneiro Cox, who is a VP of Business Development at Wonderbots, a global automation advisory firm. Paula simplifies technology to business users in order to help organizations undergo enterprise-wide digital transformation efforts. She believes in holistically addressing the needs of the employees whose work is changing and will change by reframing the way to communicate work and embrace the future of work. Wonderbots help clients in all sectors and has made an impact on the higher education community over the last several years. Within the application of software bots, conversational AI, process intelligence, and an ever-growing tech stack, companies are empowered to modernize and evolve. Second of our speaker is our own Becky Klein, an Associate Director of Purchasing Operations at George Mason University. Becky, she's been with us in the past, but she's been instrumental on the RPA program here at our university. As said, she's an Associate Director of Purchasing Operations and Purchasing and Accounts Payable at a GMU's Fiscal Services. One of her roles in Purchasing and Accounts Payable is overseeing special projects that impact purchasing, accounts payable, purchase cards at university level. Serving as the project manager, she ensures that all computer and systems upgrades are documented, tracked, and completed. She successfully proposed a project for pilot RPA in fiscal services and successfully launched GMU's first bot to production. We are also very proud to say that she is an advisor to the Virginia Academic RPA Community of Practice. And last but not least, we have Fanny Ip. She is a managing director at Huron's Consulting Intelligent Automation Practice. She has over 20 years of experience guiding institutions in many industries through business transformation, customer experience improvement, and automation maturity. Before Huron, Fanny served as a vice president of the Automation Consulting Office at UiPath, She co-led North America's McKinsey and Company's automation and has also led business transformation projects at PwC and Deloitte. Fanny earned her MBA from UCLA and her BA from the University of Chicago. She's co-author of Democratizing Artificial Intelligence with UiPath, which is an in-depth discussion on how to expand AI, ML, document understanding, chatbots, process task mining, and RPA usage in any organization to achieve operational efficiency and high performance. So this wraps up the introduction of our speakers. And today's conversation is going to go just deep dive, as they were saying, and we're going to just start straight. And I would like to ask Becky first. Becky, thank you again for being with us today, for not for the first time, but for the second time. And my question to you would be, since the last time we had, we talked and we had this conversation, maybe for our audience today, who's largely involved in the academia world, both non-tech and non-tech world, how do you determine what to do, basically, if a business process is a candidate for automation before any development occurs?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and it's been my pleasure to be part of this group and paying it forward and sharing the RPA process. So how I did it was I reached out to the software developer and I said, what is it going to take before just picking a process, you really want to know if it's bot friendly. So I asked them for a criteria. And so obviously we wanted to have success right off. So we picked something that was a low intensity. That means it touched the fewest amount of system touches that it needed to do. And so by doing that, by reaching out to the developer and them giving me criteria that would be best used for RPA. So I picked a project that was best suited to meet that criteria.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. How about from a consulting standpoint? Maybe Fanny can jump in here. How does a consultant approach this process, Fanny?
So from a consulting standpoint, so the first thing is we generally talk with the client to see what are they trying to use automation for, what are they striving from a business outcome perspective, because every client might be different. Some of them is based on the process efficiency standpoint, but some of them might be looking for accuracy, like driving out like errors and things like that. So that would be the first thing we do first, to make sure that we understand what the business outcome is trying to get to. And then we will be talking to the identified areas where we have seen a lot of other companies have done similar things in that function that could achieve the same business outcome. So that's generally how we would approach it. And then we'll go through the technical details to see what would work better, how complex is it, and then prioritize it that way.
Thank you. Maybe Paula would like to add something to this question.
Sure. So similarly, I think it's very important to identify what the outcome is, and the outcome might be different to various stakeholders, which you'll learn as well as you embark on the automation journey. So really aligning with that is one of the keys. Then there's kind of, because we've been at this for a while, there's the tried and true tested automation candidates, which live in the back office, right? So within finance and accounting, often, that's a really ripe automation ready place to start. We have two clients that are in the Virginias. I'm so excited to be getting to know you guys as well. So I'm just thrilled to be here. And I love when I come into these conversations and these opportunities where folks say, yeah, we ended up starting in finance and accounting. It just lends itself to be a high volume place for you to make some advancements. Additionally, there tends to be there tends to be sometimes where folks have to automate simply for the sake of compliance. Perhaps there was a ding at the end of the year, or something was out of compliance, or a process wasn't followed, to its utmost. Well, robots don't make mistakes. So sometimes, even if it might not be a huge ROI to begin with, the choice that you make to automate in advance might be because you're trying to avoid a fine or to avoid something that you had been dinged before. So I echo what Fanny said. I think it's very important to identify what the outcome is, what the intention is there, and then you can reverse engineer your way back. Now, what Becky has shown is what is crucial to a program excelling and actually thriving onward, right? The scale part. What Becky did was she involved other stakeholders in the process early on. And so what that allows George Mason to be in the beautiful position to do is say, hey, we want you guys to be a part of this journey. We don't want to do this by ourselves. We want to do it with you. And that's another approach that really helps. Our suggestion at Wonderbots is to do them in parallel. We have pre-built solutions that are already in the back office. Let us install those for you, because you're going to have to get to that anyway, while you're over here thinking of the stuff that's unique to your organization and the way that you do operations day to day.
All right, no, thank you. I think David has a question for you all here. David?
Yeah, I'm focused not so much on the bot doing their things, but the culture, getting people familiar and comfortable with a new process. One of the things I hear a lot about is, well, we ask people to do process mining, and people are sitting at their desks going, I've only been here a year or two. I don't know all the steps, but they don't want to tell their superiors that they don't know, because somehow, in your words, Paul, they think they'll get dinged for us. So what do you guys all kind of recommend as a good practice, or maybe 2 or 3 things that people should think about going through the process at the beginning, but not scaring people away or making them ensure they're comfortable?
Yeah, no, and I think that lends itself perfectly to segue to that, and I think one of the first things that you kind of have to think about is that you have a culture of automation readiness, right? Which is doing webinars like this, which is evangelizing it, telling the story that the robots aren't scary. They're not coming to take your jobs. They're coming to help you do your jobs better, right? I think there's a lot of false narratives in the market about what a robot is. We're not talking in this particular setting. We're not talking about, the Amazon shipment, guy that brings its big old arm to pull a box and send it off. We're talking about software robots. So I think there's a large degree of education that still needs to take place for the friction and the cultural adoption to be a little bit more in tune, right? The other thing too is that, as we know, higher education specifically is a very peer-driven environment, right? You guys lean on each other to kind of learn best practices on how to modernize and how to advance. And what's been so great about the way that UiPath has introduced the Academic Alliance is that it's taken away some of that friction. Not only are you guys leveraging your students, to help you understand that automation readiness, but the culture is also being, evangelized from the top down. So you guys have really set it up from an organizationally wide perspective. And that's really what we try to get our clients to do from the beginning. Another pitfall that folks tend to overlook when they're starting off is, we always talk about governance. I bet, Fanny can echo that as well. It's so important to understand what your governance structure is and ultimately have that in place so that things move the way they're supposed to. People don't see invoices that they're not supposed to, right? That everything moves the way that it's supposed to, in the new world of an automated, enterprise. But what people often fail to look at is they think they have to build that capability in-house, and when did we decide that was the case, right? I'm an automation, professional, but really I'm a process improvement person by design. I would never pretend to step into a physics class and give a dissertation on how that's supposed to go, right? So similarly, I say the same thing to clients. You're not an intelligent automation, practice. You're not experts in this. Why would you spin your wheels trying to learn this and do all of it all by yourself? So I think there's another element. It's a little bit part education, I think, to get the cultural understanding and comfort to be, something that people adopt. But I think it's also about holding hands and saying, hey, we're doing this together. And guess what? It's coming anyway. So we might as well embrace it, get on board, and be at the forefront of this so that we can adopt it in a way that's comfortable and culturally sound for us.
Yeah.
Let's hear what Becky or and Fanny has to say. Maybe Fanny, I'm sorry, you wanted.
Okay. I agree with Paula on a lot of the points about evangelizing, but in terms of just on looking at the use cases, designing the bot, one of the important things that we have found works really well from getting people to get used and adopt the automation is, as you're designing it, you're designing the bot with like human and bot interactions in mind, like a human-centered type of design, so that your bot is really helping them in the day-to-day work. It's not like sometimes I actually make these mistakes in the very early days. We design a bot, but then the human is kind of sitting in the middle waiting for the bot to finish something, and then they do the next step. So essentially, we're not really saving the human any time. So learning from that mistake going forward, a lot of times is I'm thinking about, can I batch all this bot like activities into one thing so that I can have a discrete time where the human can save all those time and be productive, because human it takes time for us to become productive in it, right? We can't be like just working on 1 minute and then stop for 2 seconds and then go work on something else. So I think infusing that design principle as you're working through a bot, that would help in ultimately when you deploy the bot, that the human is actually not afraid of the bot because they are really helping them along the way. Becky?
Well, I was going to say how we approached it in fiscal services was, to address those fears that we talked about, because everybody's on a different level of process improvement understanding, and they always make it relevant to themselves. Like, how is this change going to impact me and what I do? And how can it also help that improvement in our jobs daily? So how we approached it was when our leadership agreed that this is something that they wanted us to take a look at, we had an all hands staff meeting, and we actually used a UiPath video that kind of like really talked to the end user, broke it down very easily so that everyone can understand the advantages of using RPA and enhancing your work life by taking away a lot of the mundane and the really data entry driven work that, listen, you're in accounts payable or any one of those accounting realms where you have to do a lot of data entry. It's a tedious thing that you have to do, and it's very mundane. So freeing people up to be able to do other aspects of their job, like improving customer service or being able to work on other areas while you are taking advantage of using the bot. So that is how we had an open dialogue. We showed the video, we had an open dialogue. And if you didn't feel comfortable, some people aren't comfortable in speaking out and where there's 70 people in a room, and gave opportunity for feedback. And that feedback generated a list of over 50 different bots that people were interested in running. So that's how we got started, and made everybody positive and felt engaged and part of the process.
Thank you, all the three of you. It seems that we see it more and more that the communication skills here are critical in everything, that it's from the beginning to the end, to end-to-end automation. But going back to Paola, maybe if I can throw another question to you, since we did already the tour de table. Paola, what are the 3 most common internal challenges organizations usually confront during RPA program?
So you gave me the provocative question, but I'm happy to answer it, and I'd love Fanny to kind of chime in too. I want to hear from what her experience is. But the internally is upfront cost. Okay, is one of the 3, and the reason is because often Somebody like Becky, right, will be led with the charge to do automation. And she comes up with the cost structure, what it's going to take to get initially set up, think through what that's going to look like. But then the beneficiary of that automation might be in fiscal services. So all of a sudden, fiscal services is saving money, time, effort, overtime, some of their expenses, but Becky and her team are still the one incurring the cost of maintaining the automation. So that's one of the things that we've seen that doesn't get aligned, necessarily at the beginning, and can cause some friction. Again, if you're doing this at small scale, it might, at the beginning, maybe doing a little pilot or two, it might not be material, but it's definitely something to think of. The other one that we've talked about a lot, and I think it ties into what we said about communication, is the stakeholder alignment, right? Becky's team might think that something's a priority, but there might be something that's secretly, boardroom only discussion taking place that trumps absolutely everything of the 50 intakes that Becky's team took, right? And so understanding that you have both the alignment from the top down and bottom up, and that the prioritization is centralized. That's key. The prioritization of how that goes is centralized, or at least agreed to. You can I have seen places where it can be federated, but you have to think through, if you're going to build multiple things in parallel, still needs to be prioritized. So that would be one. And then one that people don't talk about a lot, and this comes from my nerdy, hammer days of thinking through like process improvement, old school process improvement, and lift and shift from, outsourcing used to be our efficiency play, and that's sequencing. And people don't give that enough credit, because you can build the wrong bot and waste a lot of time and a lot of energy, whereas you could have built a very simple bot in advance that maybe would have even made you a little bit of money to invest in your own program. So sequencing the order in which you design, develop, produce, test, and deploy is a very, very crucial part of getting things aligned. And that's another thing that internally not everybody agrees to, right? Especially when you get everybody excited. Everybody thinks that their automation is the most important, or could have the biggest impact, right? And it's really important to make sure that that sequencing is measured, right, and tempered. And it's not just a hype cycle. We're really talking about material value. At the end of the day, guys, we can talk about all the warm and fuzzies that automation brings. It really does. I mean, we've changed, the time and the frequency in which children get their wishes granted, from Make-A-Wish Foundation, because there was a truncation in the process and they couldn't get their wishes fulfilled in time. Like, how heart-wrenching is that? And an automation could fix that to where they could go to Disney World one last time. Like, there's some great, amazing, beautiful stories like that this can produce and conjure up. But at the end of the day, we also have to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible to our organizations. And by sequencing, communicating, and having that alignment, that's 3 surefire ways at the beginning of your program to make sure that you're probably going to be sound in budget along the way. And you should be at a net win probably by year 2 if you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paula. Go ahead, Fanny, please.
Yeah, so I want to add on to what Paula said. So the first point is very true, the cost, right? And I would say that a lot of times, especially in the higher ed situation, it is a grassroots movement where you started off small in places. So, and unlike in a lot of the commercial settings where it might be an enterprise top-down initiative. So then the next question is, how do you come up with a business case to ask for funding? And in the high ed space, particularly, sometimes it's very ambiguous. Like, where is the money? Who am I going to ask for, right? So, and then also a lot of times, how do you put together a business case where you have the proof point, you have what your plan is and how you're going to execute it in a few years, and then this is the financials behind it. How do you present it in a way where you will eventually get the funding, right? So that requires some well thought out and also initiative from someone, right? Because as I mentioned, it was most likely it is a bottoms up initiative in different departments who will actually raise their hand and say, I want to do this and own this, right? So that's a lot of times things that in order to grow, you do need to put in effort and initiative to do that. The other.
Sorry, no, go ahead. Sorry, I was unmuting myself. Go ahead, Fanny. I'm sorry.
So one other point is I think we're calling this initiative RPA, right? Which is rightly so. This is a great start of the automation journey, but it also limits how far you can go because you're focusing on one technology itself. A lot of times I would suggest our clients to adjust just the naming or like the branding of it to automation, because then you can start to look at more than just RPA. You can look at process mining, you can look at document understanding, or even like the beginning case of machine learning and things like that, because then it will truly like getting people to upskill beyond like just one technology itself. So those two are important as you're thinking about the bigger picture of how do I make it grow? Where would I go next?
No, thank you. And I think Becky never had any cost-related issues. Did you, Becky? We're amazing.
Well,
Budget is free.
considering-
I'm just kidding.
Well, considering I report to the chief procurement officer, it makes it a little easier because, you know, I don't have so many levels. Actually, they're the ones that decided. So the money aspect wasn't really a problem because we had already been tasked by our senior VP that we needed to bring automation in general and process improvement to our business practices because we had, I'm not sure if neglect is the right word, but maybe we had not made it a real priority. And so we were just band-aiding things internally to keep business going while technology was screaming ahead of us. So at some point, you know, we had leadership change and they came in and said, what? You're not automated? Get busy. So it's just been just a real fury of a fast pace in Mason's Fiscal Services in order to, you know, to bring all facets of automation and not just RPA in our organization.
Oh, thank you. I like this. I'm going to quote you this. You're not automating, get busy. I like that. But please allow me, just before I invite David for the next question, just also to invite our audience, if they have any questions. We're already seeing some questions coming in. Please put them in the chat box. Happy to address them, you know, later on. So just please, the audience, keep that in mind and keep them coming. Thank you. David, maybe back to you.
Yeah, I was going to follow up on Fanny's comment. I hear this every day. I hear people who say RPA, David. I hear people go, what's RPA? I have no idea what you're talking about. I have people who say it's automation. Then I have people saying it's RPA plus automation. I wish we had like lightning strike that gave us the term that everybody could understand. I just had a conversation with a senior leader in a private institution, and I was explaining what we're doing and why it's good for the Commonwealth and how it'll improve everyone's lives. And this is a guy who has a PhD, very distinguished professor, who's into new technologies and stuff. And he said, David, I like you. I have no idea what you're talking about, but we'll be on board because I believe in you. I'm like, well, thank you, but it's more than just me. You know, it's really about making it better for colleges and students and for, you know, all the things that we do among all our private and public schools in Virginia and around the country for that matter. So we've got to figure out, you know, we just had the 10th anniversary of the name RPA, but where do we go from here while we're trying to get all the cattle together so the herd runs the same way going forward?
So I'd love to take a stab at this if I might. And I'll send you guys the link and you can share with the folks that showed up this YouTube segment that I did called the alphabet soup of intelligent automation. because not only is it RPA, it's IPA, it's like, I mean, it's LMNOP by the end of the day when you're done with it, you know, and all the tools that Fanny mentioned, they all also have acronyms, and we as consultants forget that people speak English and not acronyms, right? So I think it's on us as well. The other thing is, remember that we have Gartner and we have, you know, HFS, we have those kind of analysts that are just trying to box these concepts that are so novel into a box. You know, we're humans, we love boxes, we love labels, we love to say that's a girl, that's a boy, you know, this is RPA, this is not. And I think what Fanny said is brilliant, and that's exactly where we're headed. That's what we're calling it. Some of the, you know, UiPath has taken on the hyper automation term, and they have a hyper automation suite. That's a product, that's fantastic. But the concept that we're talking about is still automation, right? You can have intelligent automation, or you can have RPA that just does programmed automation, right? You can have automation that learns from the programmed automation, which is machine learning, ML, another acronym, right, that goes there. So, so I think in order to simplify, I think, you know, and really what we've done and what most have done, and I'm sure Fanny and Becky can attest to this as well, most providers, most consultants have gotten to the point where we're just calling this automation. And by sheer default, because there's a lot of smart humans around it, and we have a lot of subject matter experts, this is the first time in technology history where business and technology come together with their unique skill sets to really get stuff done. And so because that intelligently happens, where I can say I have a brilliant business idea, but a technologist can say, Paula, that ain't possible, right? And we have to figure out how to make it work. It by default becomes intelligent. So I'm happy to share that. I did a segment because I realized one day, you know, early on, I was in a panel similar to this, and you know, at the end of it, my CFOs, it was a CFO panel, and I'm speaking jargon, right? And at the end, they just said, you know, we just need a definition list, if you could, you know, the ABCs of intelligent automation. So I made a quick little playlist of that with a few definitions that might be helpful to the audience. And to your point, Dave, I think we just really need to agree to call it automation. We are automating things that were not automated before. It's intelligent sometimes, it's super simple with a Power BI other times, but it's automation.
Good point. Doran, I'll throw it back to you.
Yes, thank you, Paula. That was great. And please feel free to share with us, and then we'll share to with our audience. Now, coming back, but actually, like building upon what we talked so far. And I'm gonna throw this now straight to Becky. What are common practices, Becky, people should follow, according to you, to increase automation success rate and keep implementation costs down? Did you hear me?
I think you might be in.
Sorry about that. I was muted.
Oh,
So
I thought I was on mute.
No, I think my husband pressed that mute button. No, I'm kidding. So what I wanted to say is one of the things I find, because I'm in that middle role, where I understand both the technical side, because I'm a process improvement professional. That's what I do. I have subject matter expert on the non-technical side, you know, with accounts payable and purchasing and those processes. And then I work with the technical people in order to mind meld them together. But not everybody has that unique skill set. So I do find that when we have the non-technical people, they have this vision that you can make their manual process and actually mirror it exactly. And that's a problem. You have to be flexible when you are designing when you're migrating it from being a manual to an automated process. You need to be flexible, and you need to look at what the outcome. We've talked about this in several of the other conversations, that you need to look to see what your outcome is instead of being so rigid in the details and getting that output. So I made several business decisions when I was actually making a decision on the bot that I did want to design. I actually looked at the existing process and actually made some process improvements of the manual process, just in case that bot, decided not to do a bot for that one. So I actually made some process improvements just in the decision-making process of whether or not this was a good fit for this type of automation, and how I was going to make it be most successful. So instead of making it complicated, and again, I wanted it to be successful so that we could take this back to our leadership group and say, hey, guess what? We were very successful in launching our first bot. I mean, and if you want to talk about the success rate, I mean, it used the bot that my team, we created, the process, we did it once a week, but it would take us between 6 and 8 hours, human hours, in order to process it. It takes that bot 15 minutes a week now to do the process. And it only took us a couple of months. And we started from scratch. Like, we had no architecture design. We had no process design document. I think all those are key into documenting the process, creating a process document, having an architecture kind of design committee who has a basis of reviewing the things that you want to do. I believe these all are key necessary to implement and have success, and keep the rates down by not going down the wrong rabbit hole when you want to get something done, by having a good thought process do that.
Becky, and I'm not sure how many people here on the call, they would agree with me, but you persuaded me. So I think George Mason is in very good hands. Very good. Like David said earlier, I trust you. So that's awesome. I'm not sure if the rest, maybe Fanny, you want to add something to it, and afterwards Paula to this question, and then
Yep. I think Becky bring up a very good point of you have to show result, right? So you can't be like dragging on doing something for a long time because it's like, this is what we are working on for a year, right? So, but at the same time, you also want to see what is the impact from an end-to-end perspective. So that's always a balancing act as we are working with the client. So one way to alleviate that is we have the end-to-end process in mind, and then we break it down into smaller use cases. So, but we are developing the smaller use cases, and so the deployment time is quicker. But at the bigger picture, you are actually seeing that as an architect, right? Becky, as someone who oversees all the stuff that are happening. So you have the end-to-end automation in mind, but you're just breaking it down into smaller automation. And as it goes live, it will still have benefit. But once you stitch them all together, then the benefits will magnify quite a bit. So I use that technique a lot in the sense that it's satisfied that you are showing result as you go, the agile methodology, but you don't lose the fact that you are really improving the end-to-end process. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
And the only thing I'll add, I think this panel is just so brilliant. The only thing I think I'd add is insert pre-built solutions here. This is not a new technology. People have already built invoice processing. They've already built cash application. We've got it literally to where you can drag it, implement it, put it into place, and configure two sides of it. I'm oversimplifying that just a little bit, but within 3 to 6 weeks for a tech project, not bad. So, so that's what I encourage as well is, get excited about it, evangelize it. But again, don't try to be the physicist, the physics teacher when you're the automation practitioner. And if it's already been done, why reinvent the wheel? It's the age-old way of innovation working, is don't reinvent the wheel if it's already rolling.
Right. We live in a world in a knowledge era and transformational era where complicated things sound very sexy in quotes for some people, but I think we have to go back to basics and simplify it. But David, let's throw it back to you in George Mason's court right there.
Right. So I was going to add on the previous conversation, what excites me most for the academic sector, and I was in business before I became a professor, is the amazing opportunity that's out there. We did, I'm going to really just plug a paper that Dorn and I wrote on the different available bots that are used currently at least one school in the country. So you can go to your sports department and you count on ensuring your athletic scholarships are complying with NCAA rules. You can go to alumni relations and make sure alumni relations and giving is being done automatically to the best you can. You can go to student enrollment. You can go to, I think I remember something like 30 different areas where it's being used. And to Paula's point, we all kind of do student enrollment the same. We all kind of do financial aid same or very similar because we have a lot of federal and state regulations we have to follow. So I think there's like an unleashed opportunity to save labor hours in tedious skills and allow all those people to do higher-minded things that the university wants. We have a new president, George Mason. I think he's a great man. He's doing great things for us. But, you know, he's got an agenda of, we've got Mason here, we're taking it there. Well, with the same amount of people and the same amount of current resources, we can't do that unless we do things smarter and easier. That allows us then more time to hit the priorities. And I think that's one of the ways that all universities across the country, but especially in Virginia, because I currently have 4 kids in college at the same time, and I have 3 in Virginia schools at the same time, which is amazing for a college professor. But I am looking for every dime I can squeeze out of every program to make it better for the students and for the faculty and for the whole institution.
And you're absolutely right to do that. I'm really excited to announce that we are on the precipice of creating what we call a higher ed consortium. Many of you might know Eric Gold from VCU. He's a champion. I know, Becky, I think you referred to him as awesome when I first met you. He truly is a champion. And to your point, Dave, like, there's several places that reusability can be done, right? The grant process within Virginia's confines, great example, right? And once that object or the, you know, because for those that don't know, just to level set a little bit, RPA is almost like building blocks, right? And so you're building some blocks together. And so if VCU built a few blocks that then George Mason could leverage to then, you know, configure their way into their ERP system or whatever it is system that they use. Most of you guys use Banner, so it simplifies it even further. You know, you can certainly reuse those from a managed service perspective. So what we're looking to launch for mid-market, for, you know, healthcare, for higher ed, for some of these, you know, types of institutions that typically, you know, have that cost of entry, you know, that barrier to entry to begin these technologies, we're offering a managed service that's shared. And it's a consortium. I'm happy to give details about, you know, about that with anybody who's interested. But Eric Gold and his pioneering ways is one of the first ones that's going to be an early adopter of understanding that concept. And he saw it early on, right? You guys share with each other all the time, but wouldn't it be much better to share the money and the benefits and the material outcome, not just the knowledge and the experience of how you did it? And that's the next level. That's the next level we're headed. And Wonderbots is spearheading that in conjunction with UiPath support.
Yeah, and it also reduces risk. You get risk down, because I know myself, I'd like to teach more classes, but I'm always nervous about how will they be received? Will I make a mistake? You know, cost of entry is a little higher. If we work together and get the risk down, we're going to have a lot more bots going into the market and helping the academic communities all across the country, and especially in Virginia.
Yep. No, I think it's so noble.
So David, I've seen you left me by myself here as a moderator. You kind of swing towards the panelist side. That's okay. I appreciate that. No, just kidding. I think the conversation is going very well. Thanks again for everyone who's putting their questions in the Q&A section. But I would like to get the next question straightly directed to Fanny, because we have an unknown here. Fanny, who is leading the RPA program efforts according to you and from your experience, IT department, business operations, you personally or others?
So I think first of all, we have to break down what does owning means, right? So if you break down all the functions of running a RPA program or automation program, IT, it doesn't matter who owns it, ultimately are responsible for doing governance, for doing infrastructure and support, because that's their core function. And on the business side, they are the important stakeholders because they have the use cases, right? They have the demand of it. So when I'm working with clients where they are always, I would not say, it could be a political struggle, or it could just be a pure questions like who should own it. When we say owning, what that means is someone is raising their hand to take the initiative to drive it, and either they have their own funding or asking for funding. So who would do that, right? So in a lot of organizations, what I have seen is initially that owner is usually the CFO, like because they see that the automation can help them achieve like driving efficiency and cost perspective. But they're most of the time, they're only starting that initiative. And eventually they're going to transition it to IT. That's that's one of the most common threat that we have seen. The other one is IT is the initial owner from the get-go and continue to own it because they see automation as a technology investment. So someone in there, either the CIO or the CTO, is taking the initiative and driving it. So that's ultimately the answer is that you have to answer is who is going to take the baton and then run to the final destination and get the funding, drive the initiative. But then once you do that, it doesn't mean IT disappear or business disappear. They each have their own role that you have to clearly define and how they should be collaborating together.
Thank you. Becky, you have any thoughts on this? It's clear you sound very persuasive, so please give us another. I just love it. Sorry, I couldn't.
Well, I'm, you know, I'm at the grassroots level. We've had that conversation. I mean, I'm granular down into purchasing AP. Those are the ones I care about, right? Because that's my department, and I'm actually the department head. I mean, I'm the head of travel, and I'm head of our P card, and so process improvement is an advantage to me, right? And to my unit. So I'm selfish in that regard because I build processes for me. But I think to your point about you know, where those efforts lie, I think we find that we have to share the IT resources with the entire campus, right? And they all have their agendas. And I think one of the things that Fiscal Services has done is they've hired a project director and has built kind of their own team. And so here at George Mason, they are developing their own RPA program. And so we will be managing and working with IT, but the ownership of actually creating and running those 50 that I told you, we're going to be managing those on our own, and by the leadership's choice to actually bring in some leadership to launch this program and to start bringing those that automation to Fiscal Services in all areas and not just purchasing in AP. So I think that's when you ask about whether or not it's an IT related, I'm just saying that we have Fiscal Services have stuck their hand up and said, we're willing to take the leadership on on developing our own bots internally. And of course, we still have to partner with IT. But because it's so simplified, I mean, RPA really is a simplified automated process. You don't need a tremendous amount of coding in order to roll these out. So it is someplace that we can start on our own.
Yep, and Becky, you hit on the nail, right? So there is the ownership question, which basically to me a lot of times is the money, where the money coming from. But then below that, what you are talking about, how you're going to work with IT, what services IT is going to provide you, how do they prioritize your request, as well as let's say the program wants to go beyond AP or T&E, who is going to drive that like adoption, right? So those we are generally calling it the automation operating model, and that's the important thing as you grow from just your grassroots effort, as you're thinking about enterprise-wide. Those I would say social contract, as you will, between the business and the IT and the COE become important. Who is going to do what? How much is it going to cost? And who has the priority? Those things is better to discuss and agree upon upfront, so that you can then can act it according to the plan.
I was just going to say, just because we took the ownership, then we get to decide what the priorities are within fiscal services.
Yeah.
And that's one way, that's usually how it starts. It's, you know, RPA is typically born of a business unit, but then like I said earlier in this discussion, you get to a point where you either need to figure out a chargeback model, because the people that are running, maintaining, and paying for the bots and the AI and whatever other tools you have are not necessarily the beneficiaries of it. And the other
Right.
struggle that we see a lot between business and IT is IT says, why am I paying for all these licenses and all this stuff when you guys are the ones benefiting from it and you're just adding work to my plate? So there is an equitable distribution of how it works. It's, again, it's a relatively new business model. You're seeing a lot of leaders now getting promoted to chief, automation officer. It's becoming a business unit in and of itself because of the complexities of the governance and the cost structure and the chargebacks that you have to think through. So I think what Fanny said was super sound. And I think, Becky, you have absolutely every right. If you're going to be a renegade evangelist and raise your hand, then absolutely give your department, the run of the mill first. Prove it, you did, and now it's evangelizing across the organization. I call that a win.
Yes, that's a win. So dear guests, with your permission, and because of the timing as well, and this is a clear testimony that there's a lot of room for automation within the higher ed space. We have lots of questions from the audience. So with your permission, I can ask the first one, if David also would allow me. Actually, he went to the other side of the show.
But I won't comment on the question.
A dear friend of ours is asking the following: what is the, and here I think it's for all the three of you, what is the single most impressive automation you have built that employees just high-fived each other when it runs? Could you please address that? I don't know, you have any of that? Fanny, you want to start?
Actually, I want to skip that one.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I can go to the other ones.
Sounds good. Maybe Becky, you have any high five automation?
Well, considering I've only got one successful bot, I think we high-fived the fact that, we didn't know anything about the process whatsoever. We were more than willing. I think we had a great team that we put together between the technical and our IT people and the project manager, and we methodically put it together. And I think we were all thrilled that we were just all thrilled that we were able to see this to very quick success, and we're able to document it, and it is still running in production today. And we are able, it is seeing our reality. And I don't think we would be advancing this within fiscal services had we not had, that level of success. So to me, that's a high five, because we were actually able to venture into the unknown and make it a success. And I think that's a win. High five.
Thank you. Paula, anything, a high five, a quick one before we go to the next question?
I mean, my favorite story I already told you guys. The Make-A-Wish Foundation, I think, is one of the most impactful ones that I've been able to be a part of. But there was one actually that I wasn't. I'm not on the team that high-fived, but I can only imagine if I was in their shoes, I would probably be high-fiving. There was a team of 17 people. I swear, 17 people, where their entire job was to log in and check email to see if a eligibility form matched the criteria that it was supposed to have happened so that they could do their job. So every day, all day long, they were just checking email to have it be done. And in this particular case, I think there's a lot of skepticism. It took a lot longer for us to get this project across because they were concerned. But the high five moment at the end was that they realized they weren't going to get fired. All 17 of them got repurposed and replaced into new, more high functioning, brain powered, fulfilling work. They weren't just checking email anymore. And they've actually improved their process tenfold. I no longer work for the firm that I built that at, but that was a moment where it was a high five all around because there was so much trepidation about automating because they thought, oh my gosh, once they get rid of this email check, our jobs are gone. And really what ended up happening was that their jobs were enhanced and they changed. And a couple of them actually became part of the COE, ironically enough, having some involvement. And that's such a Jim Walker question. So I love that. Thank you.
So in the interest of time, I'm going to just go and answer one question.
Actually,
yeah.
And the next question is actually directly addressed to you. So our guest is saying, I agree with Fanny's comment about the overall automation journey.
Yeah.
Fanny, in your experience, what is the best first step? Because the question continues, in your experience, what is the best first step in that automation journey? Is RPA the best place to start?
So in general, what we found the client is they're interested in automation because they found RPA somehow. So RPA is generally the first place where people will start with all the rule-based transaction that they want to automate. As they get success with it, then they will then ask the question is like, oh, I have unstructured like documents upfront. Can I do anything with it, right? So that's a general progression when people are looking for first, like they just use OCR technology, and then they're looking at document understanding, which intelligently can process the documents. So that's a pretty general trend we have seen. And the other one that has come in play more is around testing, because RPA really originally years ago, it was a regression testing tool that someone very smart people determined that, oh, it has a lot of usage if we do it in business process. So we have seen companies that have done RPA and then the company or organization also has a lot of system implementation going on, or having a lot of cloud applications that they are constantly manually doing regression testing. So RPA, the extension of it to use test automation is another one that is a pretty general progression that I have seen. And then ultimately is the trying to incorporate machine learning into it. I would say that one is not as common yet because the skill set is still a little bit of a jump from what you are doing from RPA. But there are companies that have been doing automation for 5 years. That's where they're going, right? Either in chatbots world or in just incorporate cognitive decisioning into their workflow.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I retained something very important, and you mentioned this. RPA is the first step in automation journey. I think this translates in life too. The first step is the most important. So last question before we adjourn, in case my dear friend and colleague David doesn't have anything else to say, but I think we should conclude with this question. What kind of benefit, we can go around, maybe we can start with Paula first and please keep it short so in respect for audience's time and everyone. What kind of benefits people should expect from a successful automation program? Your 2 cents on this, or 5 cents.
Quality of life at work.
I like that. Becky?
Have an improved time management.
Nice.
I'll say ultimately is improving efficiency. And you can interpret efficiency in many different ways, but
Yeah.
that's ultimately what it is.
Nobody said cost savings. I was gonna leave the easy one for last, but that's a clear indicator one as well, too. Save you on hiring and attrition.
So, thank you very much. That's all from the moderator side. Maybe David wants to add anything before we adjourn?
All I
This was
want to
great.
do is, yeah, this was great. Thank you all for participating. Thank you all who are engaged in the webinar today. It will be posted. It is recorded and it'll be posted on our website. Don't hesitate to go to va-va.us to find out what we're doing. And I want to thank George Mason University and Becky for all the great work we're doing to really put all we're talking about into practice to make ours, as many other schools, integrated institutions. So thank you all and have a great day.
Thank you.